before we even shot anything, right? On the page, Maya Lopez enters that scene as a teenage girl, and she leaves it as a cold-blooded killer.
Sydney, I love Echo. Like, this is the MCU version for me of like Sons of Anarchy or like Ozark, a very grounded story that just happens to take place in the MCU. I love it. How did grounding Maya's background in the Choctaw Nation provide the perfect foundation for the character? You
know, we always knew that we wanted to tell a story that was a little more intimate, a little more grounded, a little more street level. And when Maya Lopez was created as Choctaw, then for myself, the first logical step was to engage the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. And so very early on, we met with them, presented the project to them, and did two things. One was ask permission. Sure. You know, I think for myself, being Indigenous growing up, my father would always sort of instill and teach myself and my sister that you always have to ask permission. And the other thing was to, create a dialogue. And we wanted, and basically present and say, listen, we're not here to tell you what we're going to do with the character. We're here to get your expertise, get your feedback. You know, we're coming in and we want to push the envelope, but let's define where the envelope is.
Sure. One thing I loved about this show, too, is the way that it's shot. I've noticed even on close-ups, we can still see the signing. Can you talk about working with Doug Ridloff for the visual language and the ASL with the cast and production?
I think that's a perfect example of how representation can have positive consequences. You know, very early on, myself, my crew, we took sign language classes, and one of the things that I learned, and it actually ended up dictating our entire visual style. So what you're describing is intentional. And so one of the things that I learned early on is that when you and I are speaking and the words are coming out of my mouth, that is the text of what I'm saying. But the subtext is in how I deliver those words, right? And so you need both of those things to get the full emotional intent of what is being communicated. And so in ASL, it's slightly different, right? So when you sign typically here or here. And this is the text. But the face and how you emote, that's the subtext. So you need both of those things to get the full emotional intent of what's being communicated, right? So what does that mean? That means in our show, this is a close-up. Sure. And so because it's a close-up from Maya Lopez, everyone else gets that same close-up. Incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Now, this is the first time the MCU has kind of taken us to a small town, which makes it a lot more intimate, the storytelling, which I loved. We're in Tamaha, Oklahoma, which feels like a character itself in Echo. Can you talk about how that adds to Echo? Yeah, I think, again, in sort of this pursuit of authenticity, and more specifically, small town Oklahoma, and for myself, I grew up on a reservation in New Mexico, and the town I grew up in is different than the town of Tamaha. So for us, it was, I think, and having grown up in and around, or having made multiple trips to Oklahoma growing up, and being familiar with sort of small town America, that was something we always wanted to lean into. And then once we brought the Choctaw Nation in there, we tried to merge those two things together. It's incredible. Can you talk about Maya's perception of family? Because we see in the series, or at least throughout the course of what I've seen in the series, her go from kind of selfish to almost selfless as we get there. Can you talk about that a little bit? Yeah, no, I think that's one of the most exciting things about the series was getting to explore the sort of, I'm trying to figure out how to describe this, without spoiling, the definition of family, right? So when we come into the series, Maya has a very different definition of what family is, and over the course of it, we're gonna challenge those preconceived notions of what she knows to be true and real to her experience, and see if that worldview still holds by the end. I love exploring Maya's relationship with Wilson Fisk. I feel like it is so fascinating to me, like their relationship, because she does look at him as a father figure, but he teaches her kind of like this cruelness about the world and kind of like manipulates her. Can you talk about how their relationship is explored throughout the series? Yeah, I think it's, again, in terms of like this family dynamic, the dynamic between Wilson Fisk and Maya Lopez is that of a father and a daughter, or of an uncle and a niece. It's a very unhealthy relationship, but that's also where a lot of the fun lies. Yeah.
In the first episode, right off the bat, we get an incredible fight scene with Daredevil and Maya. It is fantastic, and it's like 7 minutes long. It's a pretty good fight scene. Can you talk about how the action with Daredevil sets itself apart from the Netflix series and She-Hulk, but still feeling true to the character?
Yeah, I think everything stems from the story and the script and the the unique specific circumstances of our show. And so in reading that scene, the thing I loved about it was that before we even shot anything, right, on the page, Maya Lopez enters that scene as a teenage girl, and she leaves it as a cold-blooded killer. Yeah. And so I wanted the audience to be able to see that transformation happen in real time, and try to put them in her shoes and experience things, in some cases, literally as she is perceiving them. Spoilers. I don't want to spoil it, but after you see the scene, you'll understand what I mean by that. And so that lent itself to us shooting it as a oneer. And so I think we knew it was ambitious going in, especially on a TV schedule, sure, but we wanted to take that swing.
Look, Alakwa is great as Echo, Maya Lopez. She is fantastic. What did she bring to the role that wasn't on the page?
Oh man, you talk about that like it factor, that those intangibles, and Alakwa just has this natural blend of like charisma, natural ability. She can be physical, she can be emotional, and I think, but to sort of have to learn to do that on the job it's a tremendous responsibility, even for an experienced actor, to be the lead of a Marvel series that shoots for over 90 days. And I think for Alakwa, with essentially her sum total film going experience being a few days on Hawkeye prior to this, she came in and she met every expectation. She exceeded every expectation, and she rose to every challenge. And in my opinion, she's the real deal.
Yeah, this series is absolutely incredible. I love the tone. I love the grittiness. I love that it's grounded. Thank you so much for your time. Fantastic job. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.